Japan just told the whole world something that Mark Carney has been desperately trying to hide from you. And folks, once you hear this, you are gonna be sick to your stomach. While Carney was standing in the snow somewhere above the Arctic Circle last week, smiling for cameras and getting group hugs from Nordic leaders who were celebrating him like he just won the Stanley Cup, Japan was quietly doing a $44 billion energy deal with America, not Canada. And that is not a typo. $44 billion worth of natural gas. Locked in, signed, done. Going straight to the United States, while our Prime Minister is off jet-setting to his 26th foreign trip, coming home with nothing but selfies and promises that vaporize the second you try to find them in writing. And here is the part that should make every single Canadian, from Cape Breton to Kamloops, absolutely lose their mind. Japan needs this energy so badly right now that their shipping companies have literally stopped sending vessels through the Strait of Hormuz because of the war with Iran. Over 90% of Japan's oil comes through that strait. They are desperate. They came to Canada years ago begging us for our natural gas. Justin Trudeau looked that Japanese Prime Minister in the eye and basically said there was no strong business case for it. No business case for selling the third largest natural gas reserves on the planet to the most energy-hungry nation in Asia. That is like a Tim Hortons franchisee telling a lineup of 100 people on a -30 morning that there is no business case for selling coffee. And now here we are in March of 2026. Japan is still desperate for energy. The Strait of Hormuz situation has made it worse. And what does Canada have to offer them right now? We have one LNG terminal that just barely got approved after a decade of fighting regulators. One. The Americans have built 7 terminals and approved 21 more in 6 years. 7 and 21. We built one in 10 years. That is like showing up to a hockey game with one skate and wondering why the other team is scoring on you every shift. So Japan looked at the math. They looked north. They saw Canada talking about net zero and green transitions and EV superpowers. They saw a country that has been trying to keep its own oil in the ground for a decade, run by a prime minister who literally wrote in a book that 50% of Canadian oil should never come out of the earth. And Japan said, thanks, but no thanks. We are going to go with the guys who actually want to sell us energy. And they went to Trump. And Trump said, absolutely. Welcome aboard. Let us build a pipeline through Alaska together and ship you all the gas you need. Deal done. $44 billion. Gone. Just like that. And now Carney is running around Europe and the Arctic telling everyone that Canada is strong. Canada is resilient. Canada is winning. Buddy, you just lost a $44 billion customer to the country you have spent a year telling us is our enemy. You spent all of last year with the elbows up routine, telling Canadians to buy Canadian. Stop spending in the States. We do not need them. We are going to diversify. And the country you were supposed to be diversifying to just walked right past you and knocked on Trump's door instead. And look, here is what gets me. It is not like Japan was anti-Canada. They were not. They wanted us. They were practically on their knees for our LNG. Germany was too, back in 2022 when they came here after Russia cut off their gas. Greece came. Poland came. They all came here with their hats in their hands saying, please, we need your energy. You are a reliable partner. You share our values. Let us do business. And every single time, the liberal government sent them away empty-handed. And every single time those countries turned around and signed deals with Qatar or Algeria or the United States instead. And now Canada sits here with the world's third largest natural gas reserves and 0 long-term customers lined up at the door, while America is signing contracts left, right, and center. You know what this is like? It is like owning the biggest farm in Saskatchewan. The soil is perfect. You have got water, you have got equipment, you have got a gravel road leading right to the highway. And instead of growing anything, you spend 10 years telling your neighbors that farming is bad for the planet. And then when a famine hits and everyone is scrambling for food, you look out your window and see the guy with the smaller farm down the road selling everything he has got for top dollar. And you have got a field full of weeds and a carbon credit nobody wants. The Carney government right now is trying to sell Canadians on the idea that snuggling up to China is the answer. He went to Beijing in January and came back with a deal that lets 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles into Canada at a tariff rate of about 6%. 6%! Meanwhile, Trump is blocking Chinese EVs with a 100% tariff. So Carney just potentially turned Canada into exactly what Trump said we would, a side door for Chinese goods to eventually find their way into the American market. And now Trump is threatening a 100% tariff on Canadian exports if this keeps going. Great trade strategy, Mark. Truly inspired. And the auto sector, folks. Canadian auto production has dropped almost 50% since 2016. We are making 1.2 million vehicles a year now. Most of them go to the United States. The Japanese automakers only set up shop here because Canada was a gateway to the American market. That was always the deal. Carney is standing up there telling us he can replace American auto sales by selling EVs overseas. The Japanese ambassador himself came out and said, that is not how any of this works. The industry has said it. The Japanese automakers have said it. There is not a single credible voice in the auto sector that has backed Carney's plan. Not one. It would be hilarious if it were not costing Canadians their jobs. Here's the thing about all of this that nobody in the mainstream media wants to say out loud. Canada had every opportunity. We had the resources. We had the allies lined up and asking for them. We had the geography. We had arguably the most ethical, most environmentally responsible oil and gas production on the entire planet. And year after year, liberal government after liberal government, we sat on it. We regulated it to death. We taxed it into unprofitability. We listened to activists who told us fossil fuels were finished, while the entire global economy quietly kept running on them. And now a crisis hits in the Middle East. 20% of global oil supply is disrupted, and governments everywhere are scrambling for more production. And Canada cannot even release a barrel because we do not have a strategic reserve. The only G7 country without one, eh? While Carney is posing for photos at NATO exercises and getting standing ovations at the World Economic Forum. Real Canadians are paying $1.67 a liter for gas. Real Canadians are watching their industries shrink. Real Canadians are watching a $44 billion deal fly right over our heads and land in Alaska. July is coming. The CUSMA renegotiation is coming. And Canada is going into those talks with no leverage, no signed energy deals, no real diversification, and a prime minister who has spent a year traveling the world acting like the problem is Trump when the problem has been staring at us in the mirror for a decade. The good news, if you can call it that, is that this is all becoming impossible to ignore. Every deal Japan signs with America, every country that goes to the States instead of us, every barrel we cannot release because we never built the reserve. It is all proof of the same thing. The green ideology that has been running this country into the ground is not a path to prosperity. It is a path to irrelevance. Canada is a resource powerhouse that has been deliberately kept small. And folks, that has to change. Starting with a government that actually believes in this country's potential instead of apologizing for it.